I think a lot of times people like to look, online, like what are the risks? What are the odds? Like I get this question all the time. Mike, when's the market going to crash again? And by what magnitude? I don't know.
Also, do you know the winning lottery numbers for tomorrow night?
No, I wish I did. But the idea is that, yes, the market's going to crash. I mean, markets go up and they go down. It's very specifically that because markets are risky, that there's rewards. No risk, no reward, right? So if you want those rewards, you got to play the risk game. And the best way to play the game of risk is just to let time do its thing.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about 5 myths on playing it safe in retirement. Welcome to another episode of Saturday State of Mind. I'm Jess Panico, joined by my husband, Mike Panico.
It's great to be here.
What's up, Mike?
I can't wait to go through the myths here and just knock them out one by one.
There are so many myths. There are. We're always busting myths here.
I know.
So how does anybody retire successfully?
With all these myths abounding?
Yes.
Well, they have to do their research in advance and find out what actually is in front of them and what might be in their blind spot and just make moves accordingly.
Or they have to tune into Saturday State of Mind, where we're just going to bust it for them.
You won't miss a beat if you subscribe. Wink.
Okay. Well, let's get into it right away. Our first myth is cash is risk-free. Let me tell you about this, Mike, because you probably have heard this before, but there's a claim going on around there that people think cash feels safe, but silently doesn't lose its purchasing power.
Yeah. We meet people on occasion who keep almost an unhealthy amount of cash on hand. Sometimes it comes out on the other end of near interrogation, but there's like a safe in the house that's got cash in it. Or, it could be a checking account, a savings account. People like feeling safe. And why not? I mean, the world is a scary place. And if there's some kind of an emergency, something's happening around the house, whether it be a home improvement that needs doing, a spur of the moment vacation, maybe there's a job loss or something's happening to one of the kids, just grabbing that cash and having it be right there when you need it feels great. So a lot of people feel like cash is the ultimate safety net.
I think because you can see it too. It's tangible. You can touch it. I mean, don't even get me into cryptocurrency right now. Where does that exist?
Yeah, crypto doesn't have a smell, but cash does.
It does have a smell
to
it. And there's some type of security to that.
Right. So people like their security. And people worry about risk in retirement, but it's not to say that risk is just one thing. I think that people worry about the market going down. And that to them is the big risk. There's market risk. We like to say around Arcadia, though, that risk wears many faces. So you've got tax risk, you've got longevity risk, you've got healthcare risk, you've got inflation risk. And that's the one that we've got to worry about a little bit here when it comes to talking about cash. Because the United States, and this is a hyper simplified way of saying it, so this isn't the truth of the matter. We basically loan money into existence. People like to say that we print it, right? But it's true. There's more money now circulating than there was years ago. As a result, cash becomes worth less and less as time goes on. Great example. Everybody's got that, grandfather, great grandfather in their family tree that would say something like, in my day, a Coke cost a nickel. Well, why doesn't it cost a nickel anymore? Because the dollar has lost its purchasing power, right? So you need your money to keep up with inflation. You need to make sure that dollar is still growing because, when you're retired, it's not as though the cost of the things that you spend money on, whether it be utilities or groceries, whatever, it's not like those things freeze in a moment in time. Life continues to get more expensive, but the cash that you keep in a sock drawer or in your safe or in a checking account, it's not growing. And so therefore it is losing money just the same way that you could lose money in a market crash. So it's just a little bit more insidious because it happens slowly over time, how cash erodes in value. But just like, like at the beach, the water takes away at the dunes, little by little, by little, that same thing does happen to our cash unless we put it to work.
All right. So I guess really what we have to think about is cash doesn't fluctuate, but the value does erode over time.
The value does nothing but go down over time, just based on the way that our currency system is established here. So there are ways of combating it. You can look to use CDs, money markets, certain types of bonds. You don't have to take risk necessarily, or big risks anyway, just to make sure that your cash can keep up with this standard of living, but you just can't keep it in an ammo can.
That's why we talk about diversification, but that's for another episode. Let's get into myth number 2. Waiting for certainty is prudent. And I think the main idea here is thinking that markets recover faster than emotions.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people would prefer to be out of the way for when the next market crash happens. And then, of course, after that has sorted itself out, that's when they'll get back into the market.
They just say, I'm just going to wait until things settle down.
Yeah. And there's been copious amounts of studies done on this. Who benefits most when they invest? People who try to time the market, which is, getting in versus out at the right and wrong times, or people who just buy and hold. So set it, you forget it, you buy some stuff, and then you just ride the roller coaster, whether it's going up, down, or sideways, right? The latter is definitely a little bit more harrowing, because when you have put your life savings into something and it goes down 5 or 10 or 15%.
Is it crashing? This is it. Get out now before it goes rock bottom.
It doesn't feel good. Like, who wants to watch something they've literally worked hard for? Plus, you're going to rely on it go down in value. Nobody likes this. No. The problem, of course, is that the way markets work generally is that if you just miss a couple of crucial days in the market, you can miss out on the majority of returns. So like a huge mistake we saw people make back in 2008, the market drops like almost 50%. People panic. They get out of the market, but most of the recovery from a crash happens in close proximity to the crash itself. Like the biggest days where we rebound and make back those losses happens shortly after the losses themselves. And it can't be timed with any kind of alacrity. You can't necessarily use history as a guide. I mean, there's some clues when there's a crash. How long does it take on average to recover? And they'll say something like 3 to 5 years. Well, so then what does that mean? If there's a crash, do I stay on the sidelines for exactly 3 years? Is it 3.5 years? Is it 4? Is it 4.5? When you try to time the market, you have to be right twice. You've got to get out at the right time and you got to get back in at the right time. And that's just all compared to somebody who just rides it down, but rides it back up. I mean, the final point I'd make on this front, Jess, is that when you look at markets, there's been blips along the way. There's been zigs, there's been zags, but the market after crashes tends to recover and goes on to reach all new highs. At least that's been the rhythm of things. So people who've been patient, who will just buy and hold, they've been more rewarded than people who try to play this game of dodging in and out. So I would advise for people to avoid that game.
Yeah. I mean, they always say the market's like a roller coaster, right? But it's more like a roller coaster in the dark, because you don't know when you're starting to go up again, right? So I think markets recover on a calendar and humans recover emotionally. Eventually. So cash might not be the safest thing for you there. All right. Myth number 3. We're about halfway through. Stay tuned all the way to myth number 5. You're going to love it. Number 3 here, though, is volatility is the real danger. So missing recovery years is worse than drawdowns.
Yeah. I don't know if volatility is actually the real danger. I might say it's the thoughts and the emotions that we have swirling between our two ears. Okay.
User error.
We just talked about how markets going down can be scary. Nobody debates this. I'm not trying to tell you to not have feelings when you see things happen in proximity to your money. You worked hard for it. So watching it go up and then down certainly is not an easy thing to just watch, right? Certainly from the sidelines. But there are people who get too emotional and they'll let those emotions override well-laid plans or conventional wisdom. We just do the wrong things at the wrong time, oftentimes when we're left to our own devices. So a great example, it was maybe just a couple weeks ago, I had a meeting with somebody who was a consult, and I was asking them, why is your portfolio the way it is? And I think they had like half of their money in cash. And their explanation was, well, after 2008 happened, I moved everything to cash and I've moved some of it back in, but just not all of it. So the observation, and of course it's colored with hindsight here, is that you've had half of your money sitting in cash for over 15 years.
Do you know what the market performance has been in the past 15 years?
During arguably the greatest bull run in history, because you got scared once.
Sure.
What that person was kind of putting on a scale on one end was like, what I went through was scary, and that's now influenced my behavior, right? But now there is a very real thing that we can put on the other side of that scale, which is the price that they paid for that emotional, reaction that they had. They missed out on all sorts of gains. They could have way more money today had they not panicked when they did, or if they had more resolve, or at least if they gave into emotion to have a better, an idea of how to address it in the short term, and not have them take 15 years to think about what plan B looks like. I think a lot of times people like to look, online, like what are the risks? What are the odds? Like I get this question all the time. Mike, when's the market going to crash again? And by what magnitude? I don't know.
Also, do you know the winning lottery numbers for tomorrow night?
No, I wish I did. But the idea is that, yes, the market's going to crash. I mean, markets go up and they go down. It's very specifically that because markets are risky, that there's rewards. No risk, no reward, right? So if you want those rewards, you got to play the risk game. And the best way to play the game of risk is just to let time do its thing. The more that you relax, the more that you stay away from trying to time things, get in, get out. Oh, it's scary. I better pull everything. People who do that succumb to the risk, and they often pay very real prices for it. Whereas people who just put the money aside, they try not to look at it. They don't check their balances religiously. They're not watching the news. They tune out and let time do its thing. Again, you look at the market today compared to about any other period in our past, we're doing a lot better. So, and how did you get here? On the other side of letting that time elapse. So I would say volatility is not the real danger. It's emotion and letting it get the better of us.
And no one's to blame for that. Like, we're human beings. But I think that's why you consult a professional and you get coaching and advice, because some cash is good, but putting 50% in your portfolio might not be the best advice for everybody else.
This is true just for so many other things in life too, right? There's nothing wrong with being emotional. I get emotional about a host of different things. And
mostly Pixar movies.
Definitely Pixar movies. But I would say this, like, you can't be objective about a lot of the things that you deal with firsthand. So like when it comes to health, I sometimes need coaching, right? If there's like a bunch of junk food sitting on the counter at work, I'm going to be I want to go grab it and eat it. I need somebody else in the office to be like, Mike, I thought you were on a diet. Mm-hmm. Mike, I thought you had goals this year. Didn't you just tell me last week about your New Year's resolutions? You need course correcting, because sometimes in the moment, right, we just let our emotions or sometimes our base instincts get the better of us. It's just the same way it's not necessarily good for our health. It can be damaging to our portfolios.
All right. So maybe volatility isn't the real danger here. Let's talk about myth number 4. Conservative means sustainable.
We run into a lot of people who are like, I don't want to take a lot of risk with my money. I'd be really happy with something like a 5% fixed, rate of return. I don't know if we're talking about CDs or whatever here, Mike. That's my comfort zone. I'm happy being conservative because I don't want to take a lot of risk. And we said this earlier in our chat today. Risk wears many faces. So when you put your money in a CD paying a guaranteed 3%, yes, you've just avoided market risk, but you very distinctly have traded it for inflation risk. The idea that like over time, that rate of return might not help that money keep up with the standard of living. Everything in life is a trade-off. There's no silver bullet. There's no surefire way of planning for the future, right? It gets even worse too. I mean, there's other risks beyond just avoiding market risk or trading it off for maybe my dollar's not going to grow all that much. Why do we need our dollars to grow? Well, because inflation, number one, is a thing, but inflation over time compounds. So a great example, oftentimes when we do public events, I play a game with people and it's called, what was the value of the first house that you ever purchased, right? So oftentimes we're talking to 50, 60, 70-year-olds, when they were buying their first house, they were in the 70s, maybe the early 80s. I routinely get people who will say, well, my first house cost 20 grand. It cost 30 grand. It cost 40 grand. And then of course the response is, well, what kind of house can you get today for 20 or 30,000?
Can't get a car for 20 or 30,000.
There are dog houses that cost that much, right?
Sheds, literally.
So here we are. It's like 30, 40 years later from when people first bought their, first home, and the price of housing has gone up 10x because you need at least $300,000, $500,000, sometimes a lot more, depending on what neck of the woods that you're in, to buy the same house that whatever 30, 40 years ago would have cost, 10% of that. Well, if I'm going to retire at 60 and I'm going to plan to live until 90, that's 30 years. And might it be possible for prices, whether it be of housing or the loaf of bread or that can of cola that we were talking about, what if that goes up by the same amount? I need my money to grow. So it's a combination of two things, Jess. It's number one, life gets more expensive, but the longer I live, the more all of those increasing costs start to snowball and really become burdensome. So if in your 60s, you're planning for your 90-year-old self on the back of putting all of your money in ultra conservative positions, you might find that you're actually taking an extreme amount of risk. Because yes, in the short term, that 5% guarantee, the 3% guarantee. It's avoiding a market crash, but it might be impoverishing your 80, your 85, your 90-year-old self.
So I think the thought here is that a portfolio that feels calm today can create a lot of stress in 10 years from
Absolutely.
now, right? All right, here we are. Myth number 5. You can always get back in later.
That's a tough one to reconcile. It's almost like if you were just to say you can always put spilt milk back in the bottle. Sometimes a missed opportunity is just that. Now, I want to be clear here, right? If you've been maybe out of the market for whatever reason, you got spooked in 2008, maybe you didn't like the outcome of the last election. I mean, this to me is a fill in the blank thing. People get spooked for a variety of different reasons that are either justified or not, or more emotional or not. The rationale doesn't really so much at this stage matter. So I guess the next best time to get back into the market would be today. The better time would have been 10 years ago, right? Saying that you can always get back in sort of kind of diminishes how important it is to get most of these decisions right. You get one chance at retiring. Sure. It took you 40 years to get to this finish line. And having worked that long, you still got at least on average 20 years to plan for. Some people will need 30 or 40 years, depending on how long it is that they live. The more you get wrong, the more that all of those bad decisions compound and work against you. And I don't want to make it seem like we need to arm twist everybody here to have all their money in the market. How much risk that you even need to take depends on your health, and it depends on whether you have a pension or not. It depends on what kind of budget you need to sustain monthly. So there's no one size fits all way of going about this. But saying I can always get back in later, it sounds a lot like, well, I can always evaluate my plan later, or I can create a plan later. If you're going to feel really confident about that next 20, 30, 40 year period, you need to make sure that your money's in the right place, that it's growing adequately enough to not only sustain your budget in the short term, but sustain that future budget, however far out we need to go here. We need to make sure that we're not unnecessarily paying taxes if we could otherwise avoid them. We need to make sure that there's a contingency plan if we have a health event along the way. One unplanned health event can send everything askew. What I'm trying to tackle here, your comment sounds a little bit to me like procrastination. I can always look at this stuff. I can always plan for this stuff later. The best time to figure out if you're in the right place is today. The market is good right now. Taxes are low right now. You don't want to wait until the horses have fled the barn to make sure that the barn door lock worked, right? If your plan is in a good place, the time to make sure that it's in that place is today, because we're in a good spot. I wouldn't leave things to chance or leave those things till tomorrow.
Which I think that's why it's so important that you consult a financial professional about this. Well, thanks so much today, Mike, for helping me bust those 5 myths we had there. If you enjoyed this, hit the subscribe button and also tune into our episode on retirement. Doesn't have to be scary. We'll see you next time.